Hi boys and girls. Down below, click on the CC on your screen for closed captioning. That'll bring up the words so that you can read along with me as I read the next chapter of I, Freddy. Chapter 5. I was getting to grips with G-R-A-I-N, the group of letters meaning grain. In Sophie's reader, that's what her school book was called. When a bell rang in the distance, Sophie ran off. "Mr. John!" I heard her call out. "Hi, kid," said a man's voice. "Daddy gave me a golden hamster, Mr. John. His name is Freddy. Come on, I'll show him to you." I was still crouched over the reader, but I sat up and begged. I wanted my mistress to be able to show off a presentable hamster. Sophie came back into the room, followed by Mr. John. He had a big nose, bushy eyebrows, and a leather briefcase clamped beneath his arm. "This is Freddy," said Sophie. "Hi, kid," said Mr. John. Was that the limit of his vocabulary? "Well," he went on, "he sure is a hamster and a half." So he could say things other than hi after all. I even grasped what he meant. It was really funny what he'd said and the straight-faced way he said it. "He sure is a hamster and a half." To show the joke wasn't lost on me, I twitched one corner of my mouth and the whiskers that went with it. "I could swear you understood me," said Mr. John. Not only funny, but smart as well. I took to the man right away. Mr. John came closer and bent over. "Hey there, little buddy," he said. "Twitch the corner of your other mouth, of the other side of your mouth." And that was when the cloud of vapor hit me. In order to understand my reaction, the reader should know two things. First, a golden hamster's sense of smell is at least as important as his hearing and eyesight, so it's pretty sensitive. Just as our eyes are dazzled by too much light, so our noses are dazzled, so to speak, when they pick up too powerful of a smell, let alone a stench. A stench can be really painful to us. Second, the golden hamster's many enemies include cats and guinea pigs. Cats because they like to eat us. Guinea pigs because of their crude behavior and dirty habits. In the pet shop, the cats and guinea pigs had been housed a long way from the golden hamster cage. This meant that their smell, although unpleasant, was at least bearable. The stench Mr. John gave off, which hit me smack in the nostrils, was as concentrated a blend of tomcat sweat and guinea pig's pee. Ew. The smell was so strong, it literally knocked me over backwards. I was up in a flash, though. I made for the open door of my cage, darted through it, and dove into my burrow. Scraping some wood shavings into a ball, I plugged the entrance with them and laid there, panting hard. "Oh," I heard Mr. John say, "a contender for the Hamster Olympics." Very funny, I thought. Side-splittingly funny. I got up to check if the entrance was airtight, feeling that I wouldn't survive another dose of that stench. This was an exaggeration, of course, and I felt a bit ashamed of panicking like that. But the fact remained, Mr. John and I were through. "Something must have startled him," said Sophie. "What could it be?" "I've got a pretty good idea," said Mr. John. "Really? Okay, shoot, smart guy." "Hamsters are very sensitive to smell." You got that right, Mr. John." "Maybe he smelled William on me." "William? Nice name. But who did it belong to? The tomcat or the guinea pig?" "Or it could have been Enrico and Caruso, my guinea pigs." Wow! Two of the creatures, I thought. No wonder I'd fallen flat. So William was the tomcat. Judging by the intensity of the smell, Mr. John must share his home with the animals in question. Why did he torture himself that way? Strange creatures, human beings, that is. At any rate, I was very glad I would never have anything to do with Mr. John's menagerie. "Sorry, Freddy," I heard Mr. John say. "I didn't mean to scare you." A real gentleman, I thought. Still, the entrance to my burrow would remain plugged for as long as he was on the premises. I treated myself to a little snack and then went to sleep. I was awakened by Sophie's voice. "You can come out now." "Mr. John is gone," she said. Once I'd unplugged the entrance and emerged, she went on to say, "I'm sorry. The next time he comes, I'll tell you beforehand. I promise. And now, I'll bring you some fresh food. At the risk of repeating myself, Sophie was a girl in a million. She kept her promise. The next time Mr. John came, she warned me in advance. She also did this on every subsequent occasion, so I was able to make my burrow airtight in good time. Although not a big job, it was still a nuisance. A pity too, because I felt sure Mr. John and I would have hit it off together. But there it was. Anyone who consorted with sweaty tomcats and guinea pigs that reeked of stale pea had to forego the friendship of Freddy Artis. Discounting the minor aggravation of Mr. John's visits, I was well off in my new quarters. If I'd had to award grades, my old cage in the pet shop would have earned only an F, whereas as my new cage would have scored an A. Well, a B, let's say, because the menu in a first-class cage includes mealworms, and here, for some unknown reason, I simply didn't get any. However, Gregory did make sure that Sophie kept me supplied with protein in the form of ground beef. The sports equipment, on the other hand, was state-of-the-art. My favorite apparatus was the circular wooden disc, or hamster carousel. The disc was mounted on its axle at a slight angle, so it turned when you ran on it. Unlike the treadwheel, which had made me feel idiotic, it enabled me to run on flat ground, so to speak, with a clear view ahead. I pushed it out into the middle of the cage, quite a strenuous undertaking, I tell you, and made it my habit to have a good jog every morning and evening. I would have preferred to run straight ahead, of course, although Sophie regularly allowed me to romp around on her table. It was too small and cluttered for that. I couldn't get down on the floor either. I ventured to the edge of the table on my second day in the apartment, but what met my eyes was a yawning chasm so deep that I could see no chance of reaching the ground. Climbing down the table leg was out of the question. Golden hamsters don't have sticky feet like tree frogs. No, there was only one way of reaching the floor. Sophie would have to put me there. I tried to make this clear to her by scampering to and fro along the edge of the table and looking meaningfully, or so I hoped, at the floor. But what did she do? She put me back in my cage, clearly convinced that I meant to jump off. I must say I felt rather hurt that she would think me dumb enough to try jumping without a bungee cord. After this had happened a few times, even Gregory failed to catch on. I just gave up. It all would have been so simple if I'd been able to tell them, "Listen, you guys, I want to get down on the floor." But that was just not what I could do. Which brings me to a pretty sore point. The confusingly one-sided nature of our ability to communicate. I mean, I could understand every word uttered by Sophie and other human beings, but the opposite didn't apply. There was almost no way I could make myself understood. True, I was capable of conveying that I was in a good mood by doing a somersault, or that I was hungry, I circled my feeding place, or that I was a cute little fellow, I went into my waving paw routine. But that was as far as it went. This gradually became a problem, an intellectual problem to be precise. The fact was, I had learned to read so quickly, and so much quicker than Sophie, that I myself was astonished. Maybe a golden hamster's brain is specially designed for reading. In view of my own intellectual feats, I'm afraid the golden hamster chapters in biology books will have to be rewritten someday. Whatever the truth, I could read quite fluently, quite soon. And then I became hungry for reading more, but I didn't get any. The only book on Sophie's desk was her reader, which was always open at the pages she happened to be working on. All they showed were pictures of things with the relevant words beside them, or sometimes short sentences, but nothing that would satisfy my hunger for real reading. I tried once or twice to open the book at pages near the end, where I guessed there was some more advanced and interesting stuff, but all that happened each time was that Sophie put me back in my cage. She was probably afraid I meant to nibble at the paper. She had no inkling that I was Freddy Artis, the remarkable hamster who had learned to read and was hungry for mental stimulus, and I couldn't tell her so. I thought of writing to her, naturally, but how? With a felt pen? We hamsters can do plenty of things with our paws, excavate an elaborate systems of tunnel, for instance, but we can't, unfortunately, wield a heavy writing implement well enough to produce something readable. And even if I had managed to scrawl something that resembled letters, Sophie still would have failed to see them as letters. Why? Simply because she would have found it impossible to imagine me having written them. I might have been able to convey to someone as smart as Mr. John that a hamster was trying to get in touch with him, but that was out of the question for obvious reasons. Gregory was another possibility, but he was seldom at home. I discovered that he played the trumpet in an orchestra. I got a terrible fright when I first learned that, wondering how it would protect my hypersensitive ears. Fortunately, he never practiced at home. And Mom? Trying to establish contact with her, even if I wanted to, would have been as futile as chatting with the moon. I never saw her. She never paid a single visit to the cage, not even to see if I'd recovered from my car sickness. For my part, I would have happily dispensed with Mom's attentions. I'd like to be able to say that I didn't exist as far as she was concerned, that she ignored me altogether. But it wasn't so. Unfortunately for me, she was achingly aware of my presence. See you next time.